Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Driven Wyld. Today we are talking about W-2 versus 1099. So one of the major differences between an employee and an independent contractor is not simply how they make money, but how their income taxes actually work. And with the lack of financial literacy in our education system and the overall complexities and nuances of the tax code, there have been a lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings of how the income taxes between the two actually work. So with that said, I want to go over everything you must know about W-2 income and 1099 income, the major differences between the two, some of the common misconceptions that come with that, and everything in between. But before we do that, let's go over a quick disclaimer. The content of this video does not contain and is never intended to be legal, business, financial, tax, or health advice of any kind. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is advised that you conduct your own research and consult with qualified professionals before applying anything you find online. Also, a big thank you to GigTax for verifying this information and making this video possible, but more on them later. What is W-2 income? W-2 income is the income you make as an employee for a company that you work for, in which the company will provide you a W-2 tax form. A W-2 tax form shows important information about the income that you've earned from your employer, the amount of taxes withheld from your paycheck, benefits provided, and other information for the year. You will use this form to file your federal, state, and city income taxes where applicable. And with this information, you will be able to calculate your adjusted gross income, or AGI. The IRS requires your employer to send you a W-2 then January 31st, following the close of the calendar year. Generally, this means W-2s are mailed by January 31st, but not necessarily received by the employees as of that date. You should only receive a W-2 if you are an employee. Hot tip: many employees who receive their W-2s through ADP have already received their scheduled appointments with us to get their files prepped. This is much earlier than that of other W-2s or most 1099s. Check with your employer to see if your forms are ready to be electronically downloaded. The quicker you have your docs, the quicker you can file, the quicker you can get your refund. Joseph Mayo, founder of GigTax. What is 1099 income? 1099 income is a non-employment income frequently seen from people in business for themselves, such as freelancers, independent contractors, vendors, etc., in which those people would receive a 1099 form. The 1099 form is a series of documents the IRS refers to as information returns, and is used for documenting different types of payments from someone who isn't your employer. This can be an individual, a business, or an entity such as the government. There are different 1099 forms that report various types of income and how they were earned, such as through gambling, interest, dividends, non-employee compensation, and retirement plan distributions. If you're a freelancer or independent contractor, or you just own your own business in general, you'll likely receive several 1099 forms from your clients or companies that you've contracted with. The IRS requires businesses to issue a 1099-K if they've paid you at least $20,000 or had over 200 transactions. The IRS had planned to change that rule, but as of December 11th, 2023, the IRS announced that the 1099-K filing threshold will remain at $20,000 and 200 transactions for the tax year 2023. As a result of this change, you may no longer receive a 1099-K form. If your platform issues a 1099 NEC or 1099 miscellaneous, the eligibility threshold remains at 600. This is especially to note if you're an active multi-apping driver, because you could have a bunch of 1099 NECs come in that are less than $20,000 and 200 transactions from the last year, or they may have one 1099-K, which is just their most active app, and their not so active apps are much smaller 1099 NECs, which is very common for people who mainly prioritize an app like Doordash or Uber, or prefer rideshare over delivery. Either way, all income needs to be reported to the IRS even if you don't have a form. On Uber specifically, they should have sent you 3 documents: a 1099K, a 1099 NEC, and a yearly summary. The yearly summary has expenses and fees that you can write off. Uber sends us a 1099K because they consider themselves a third-party payment processor, which is why you could add up the 1099K and NEC amounts. They may be more than you actually deposited into your bank account, but the expenses and fees you could write off. If you paid the 50-cent cash out fee, that is included too. According to Uber, I made $1,950 more than what I actually deposited into my bank, which is the exact amount of the fees they charged me that I can write off. That's a very common scenario on Uber as well, and a lot of these gig apps operate in similar ways, so make sure you're taking note of that and capitalizing on all of the tax benefits that are included within the app itself. According to the IRS, the reporting threshold will be $5,000 in 2024. What are the major differences? There are a significant number of differences when it comes to the 2 types of income, and it has to do with the way you conduct your taxes, or in the former case, lack thereof. When you pay your taxes, W-2 income has their taxes taken out before they even get their paycheck, which some people find convenient because they don't have to save money on tax season, which can say more about the laziness and money management skills that they don't have, but that's not for me to say. 1099 income has not had their taxes taken out, and you have to develop a savings for tax season. Most people say you should save 30% of your income for tax season, which is wildly conservative in most cases. I say that a lot, I know, but it is wildly conservative. In a lot of cases, you will not have to save that much, but it really depends on your own personal tax situation. If you're an LLC or an S Corp, you will also be expected to pay taxes quarterly and receive a return when you file your taxes during tax season. Otherwise, you may be subject to a penalty. Tax deductions. For W-2 income, there are a few ways in which you can deduct your taxable income, but the only deductions that are unique to W-2 income from 1099 income is the standard deduction. Also, if you have W-2 income and you use your own equipment or tools for any reason, you cannot write it off. Not the gas or mileage you use to commute to work, not the uniform, not the meals, none of it. Whereas 1099 income, there is no monetary limit or total deductions, but itemized deductions that may have their own limits. This assumes that you use the actual expense method as opposed to the standard mileage method, but that's for another video. Either way, you have a lot of opportunity to write off expenses that come out of your income before it gets taxed as an independent contractor. Income utilization. As we said before, with W-2 income, you have no real opportunity to write off expenses and will be taxed right away. Meaning, before you even receive your paycheck, federal income tax withholding, state and city income tax, depending on your market, Social Security, Medicare, and insurance all come out of your income. Then there are your expenses: property tax, rent, home or renter's insurance, electricity, car payment, insurance, gas, maintenance, food, groceries, student loans, etc. All come out of the net W-2 income. Then with 1099 income, expenses can usually be written off as long as they were necessary and ordinary to the operation of your business, or you found a way to capitalize certain tax loopholes. Having a home office for business purposes, using your vehicle for business purposes, meals, etc. Then you pay your taxes, including the self-employment tax on the deducted amount after business expenses. Hot tip: when reporting self-employment tax, compute self-employment tax on Schedule SE Form 1040. When figuring your gross income on Form 1040, Form 1040S or Form 1040NR, you could deduct 1/2 of the self-employment tax. Joseph Mayo, founder of GigTax. And yes, there are various limitations per line item. There's a difference between business expenses and personal expenses, and there are nuances for every single tax that you must be able to reasonably explain. But that still leaves you with incredible opportunity to save and capitalize on the income that you weren't going to be able to as an employee. Consistency of income. income. I know this isn't coming from a tax perspective, but one of the arguments people make about W-2 income that it is more consistent in terms of expectation. People say that for sure if you're making money on an hourly basis, regardless of the activity you are partaking in or even lack thereof, you can expect a paycheck for the hours you have worked. Whereas 1099 income is normally based on the work you do from an independent contractor standpoint, meaning that you are necessary to keep the needle moving. However, you can make more in any given hour depending on the rates, revenue sources, and the work you're doing, meaning that there's no real limit to the amount of money you can make as 1099 income. And yes, each industry has its own standards, but you can still make so much more from the work you do than with W-2 income, which you are paid the same regardless. Also, your income is dependent on how much the job needs you, and you could be laid off for any legal reason. And in some cases, no reason, because they believe you won't lawyer up and just take the severance package and sign the NDA accordingly. On the other hand, you could use multiple apps, contracts, and companies to maximize your 1099 income to make sure you're making the most amount of money without too much dependence on any singular income. Or even develop your own clientele in other niches, depending on which route you want to go. But if your job lets you go, that's it for your W-2 income. That's all it takes until you find another one. The number of forms. In most cases, you will really only have 1 or 2 W-2s a year. You may receive multiple W-2s if you change jobs within the calendar year, worked more than one job where you're considered an employee, or the company you work for was just acquired by another company entirely. If you're a freelancer, independent contractor, or you just own your own business, you'll likely receive several 1099 forms from your clients and the companies in which you contracted with, which if you're multi-apping or diversifying your income the way you're supposed to, you are going to have quite a number of these. And the only downside to multi-apping or diversification and using some of the methods that I commonly talk about can be costly depending on where you go to file them. So make sure when you file your taxes, the person or organization you choose to work with charges you one set price with all of your forms. And this is where GigTax is here to help. As we embrace the new year, along with the celebrations, the challenges, and the absurd amount of weather anomalies so far, the approaching tax season is inevitable, and GigTax is here to help. For every hour spent on tax season alone, you miss out on potential earnings, precious moments with your loved ones, or expose yourself to financial risks. Recognized as the leading tax preparation service for gig workers, GigTax is dedicated to simplifying the process, saving you time, money, and energy. Founded by Joseph Mayo, a seasoned gig worker with over 6,000 deliveries across 6 platforms since 2020, GigTax addresses the overlooked, overcharged, and underserved needs of the gig workers in the financial realm. Driven Wyld subscribers can take advantage of the exclusive 60% discount on GigTax's tax prep, and if you act now, the first 3 registrations include complimentary tax preparation. Hang on, let me say that again. Get a little closer. Professional tax prep tailored to your needs. Absolutely free. Secure your spot with GigTax using the description link below and enter Wyld to maximize savings and get back to what you do best, making money. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. As always, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.